Well, hello everyone, welcome to the 16th iOS tutorial. In this tutorial, we will talk about table view and how you can add table to your application, and talk about the type of tables, which is static and dynamic, and some miscellaneous topic, which is hiding status bar. And if I want to introduce the table and the different part of tables, if you look at this picture, we have two sections in this picture. So the section 0 is Europe and section 1 is Asia. As you know, the computer science starts from 0, not 1. So the section 0 includes the header, the content, and the footer. And section 1 is containing, again, the header, the body, and also the footer. So if you can see, the section 0 has header, section 1 has header, and also the footer. So these are the different parts of the table view. So let's move on. Okay, as you may know by now, I always show the final product first to get some idea of what we're gonna build. So this is the table view with some pictures and name and also numbers. We actually want to create the basic contact list. So let's create the new project. As you know by now, it's very simple, single view. We call it contact list, and it's for iPhone, and we put it in tutorial, and it's created. So let's look at the storyboard. See, this is just a view controller, and we basically doesn't need this view controller. We need the table view controller. So I just delete this. And also, if you can see, this is a view controller here. I don't need these view controllers either because they are just subclass of view controller, and I need table view controller. So just control and delete. It asks you, it wants to remove the reference. It means that just removing the files from here, or you just want to remove it entirely and move it to the trash. You move it to the trash because we don't need it. These two app delegates, just move them to the support files. So you have only storyboards and images. So basically we want to start from 0. What we have here, what we need here, we want a table view. Where's the table view in our palette? So if you look at here, we have view controller, and underneath we have table view controller. So we just have to drag and drop a table view controller to our view. So now we have a table view controller. And in order to create a class for this, we have to create a new file to write code for this. So first we go to the file, new, and then file. This is the path that we learned from the previous tutorial. And let me just go again. File, yeah, new file, or Control N would be the shortcut for this. And create the new Objective-C. And this time we subclass of UITableViewController, if I can pronounce it. UITableViewController. So we call it contact table view controller, or just TVC. And hit next, and then we create it. So now we have the table view controller class in the .h file and .m file. Okay, let's see what we have as default for creating the UI table view controller. First, we have init with style. We don't need this method actually, and we need this view did load. I just leave it as is, and we don't need this did memory warning, so we didn't talk about it. Don't worry about it. And we have some methods that they put some warning. They force the compiler to give us a warning, so it means that it's important, and we have to do something about these two parts, these two methods, and also some commented out methods that you can see. So let's just leave these commented out methods. We will later on work on it. Okay, let's talk about these two methods that you're seeing here. First of all, this pragma, I think I've talked about it, but this pragma is just for showing the section, not about this table. But if you go here, look at here, and you click on here, it just categorizes your methods. It's a table view data source. This is exactly what you have here. And you can add another pragma, for example, here, and say pragma mark, this time table view delegate. And if you go back and look at here, you can see the table view delegate, but we don't have any method underneath. But if you have other methods, it would add underneath of this this title. So this pragma is just for titles of navigating through your code. It doesn't relate to the UI or anything else. Let me just remove it here. And let's see what this method is saying. What is it doing? Let's read it. Number of sections in table view. So it basically wants the number of sections in our table. So let's look at the picture that we had. This table has two sections. This is the first section and this is the second. So for our application, we just need one section. So the number that we should return, it should be 1. So that's simple as is. We just remove the warning because we just set up as 1. And let's look at this. It says table view and then table view number of rows in section. So how many rows do we have? We can add it hard coded or we can add it dynamically. Let's create at first the number of lists, number of names and phone numbers, and then we can add it dynamically. We can go ahead and say, for example, 10, but we want to add it dynamically. How do we add it dynamically? First of all, we have to create a property and put our names inside of that property, and the property could be an NS array. So we create an atomic strong and NS array, and we call it names. And we come here, and in a setter we should initialize it. NS array, this is the setter, this is the custom setter, and we call it names. And we say if underscore names equal nil, then we want to say underscore names equals NS array, and have to allocate memory in it. If you don't remember this part, you may go back to the previous tutorials and see how we lazily instantiate the objects. And at the end, we return underscore names. So we're sure that this array is allocated and initialized. Now we want to add some names inside of this name. And we put it inside of UITload because this is the best place for that. You can say self.names equals NS array with objects, but this one, objects. And we can add our items here, like the one that we have. Yes, right. To save some time, I just copy paste some names here, and then at the end of the names you just put nil. This is the way that compiler knows this is the end of the array, and you put the semicolon. So you have these names inside of your array, so you know the number of the cells now. So we just come here and use this method self.names, this is our array, and use count. So it just returned the number of names that we have inside of this array. So this is dynamic now. And we can remove this warning because we have implemented this. Okay, we have set up the number of sections and number of cells. Now it's time to add the data, and we can do it with some delegate methods. Then if you come a little bit down, a method after number of rows in section, you will find this method that is commented out. I'll just remove this comment because we want to use it, and we'll see what is it saying. It says a table view cell for row at index. It means that it wants to set what is going to be shown inside of each cell. So at first, it just created UITableViewCell. It just created an instance of a cell, and they say table view and some fine key name here. And I will tell you why it says DQ reusable cell with identifier. Why is it first reusable? Imagine a list and a table with thousands of items. iOS will not load all thousands of items at the same time. It just reuse the cell once it goes off the screen. For example, like see right now, and this name is outside of the screen. As I scroll, it will use that cell for showing this item. So it's just reusing the cells, and that's why we call it here DQ reusable cell with identifier. And what is identifier? If we go back to the storyboard, each cell has an identifier. If I open the inspector, see, if you click on a cell and go into the inspector, attribute inspector, you can see it has identifier. So each cell should has identifier, and it use a reusable identifier. We put cell as identifier, and we'll go back to our class and see. Now we can say, okay, it wants the reusable identifier, and we add that identifier. It says cell. Now it has the reusable identifier. After that, it says configure the cell. So we created the instance, so we have to configure it. First of all, we should say if cell is nil, then we want to create it. So otherwise, we don't need to create it. If cell is nil, then you have to create UITableViewCell. Cell equals UITableViewCell, and allocate memory, and then initialize it. So we initialize the cell. Now cell has some property called cell.textLabel.text, and what we want to have for text is just our names. So we want to show the names as a title on text label. So we said self.names, and now object at index. What is the index number? We have an argument here which is called index path, and it's keep track of the cell number. So we use this index path here, index path, and index path has a property called row. So it returns this index path.row returns the number of cells, because each time that the compiler goes to this method, for example, the first cell, the index path.row is 0, so it adds the item number 0 to this label, and the next time it's 1, and it adds the object at index 1 for the cell number 1, and so on and so forth. So let's just run this and see what would we have. And when it comes up, you see nothing inside of the table but a blank cells. But why is it like this? So this is I intentionally made this error to show you how important it is, and you may face it more often. So if you go to the storyboard and click on the view controller, we never add these two classes for this view controller. So these two classes are not connected with this view controller. How do we connect it? If you just click on the view controller and then going to this item, show the identity inspector, click on it, and you can click on a class what you want. So our class is contact TVC. So once you click and select on this class and run it again, your application should show the the names. Now we have the names. But see, these status bar is just something that bothers us. Let's remove this status bar. It's easy. You go to the contact list info.p or plist, and you go to the last item, very last item, and you press plus. And in this cell, you say view base control status bar and say no, and also again press button plus, and this time say status bar initially hidden, and this yes, all capital. So just have to add these two, view controller base status, and set the value to no, and status bar is initially hidden, set it to yes. This is for iOS 7. For iOS 8 it's changed, so I will talk about iOS 8 as I promised. And then if you run the program, you will not see the status bar at the top of the list. So we're good. We just have to add the numbers this time. Let's go back to the code and look at the array. Right now we just have a name array. We just have to add another array for phones. So let's create another array. @ property non-atomic strong NS array, not a string array. This time phones. As I said before, we don't synthesize it because iOS 7 doesn't need synthesize. Xcode 5, 6. I messed up. Okay, NS array. This time for phones. And we have the same thing. I'll just copy paste it. It's just lazy instantiating. You can find it in tutorial that is about NS array. Let's copy, paste it here, return the phones, and we have to add the phones actually. Self.phones equals to NS array with objects. And we can copy paste some fake numbers here as we did for the names. For example, for the first one we add 111, 111, and 1111. So I'll copy paste the rest. Okay, just copy paste the numbers, and then we can have the numbers underneath each title and say detail text label dot text. It is the detail part, and here we should say self dot this time phones, an object at index, and the same thing, index path dot row. So if we run the program, as you can see, it's not working. It doesn't show as a subtitle. So what is wrong with this? We can do it either programmatically or we can do it via the storyboard. So let's do it via storyboard. It's much easier. So if you click on a cell and then go to the attribute inspector, you'll see some options, some nice options. First of all, you'll see the style. What is the style? If we choose basic and look at the cell, you'd see the title will come up. If it was on a custom, it was nothing there. So but when I put the basic, it adds the title. And if I put right detail, you put the details on the right side. And same thing for the left side. And what we want is subtitle. So now I put it as subtitle. Let's run the program and see what will we get. Now we have the style for that. Now it shows the numbers underneath each name. All we have to do for finishing this product is just adding a picture before each name. So let's just go back to the program, and we have to select a picture at first. So in order to add a picture, we have image folder here by default, and we can add all of our images here, all PNG images. Let's just make the view a little bit smaller, then show this image folder. So if you click on it, you'll see app icon by default and launch image. This is the image that shows the first view that shows when you run the application. And you just have to drag and drop your image. Right now I have a .png file here. I just drag and drop it inside of here. And it shows 1x and 2x. 1x is for the regular view and 2x is for retina display. So if you have another resolution that fits 2x, you will add it right here. You drag and drop it in 2x and it will automatically fit here. So then you go back to the controller. Let me just make it the full screen. You go back to this controller, and because we want to use the image, this image for all of the cells, so we just say cell dot image view dot image, and we say UI image named, and you just pick the name whatever the name of the file is. This time it's rows, so we put rows here. Rows. And you see this cell has these three properties, which is text label, detailed text label, and image view. We didn't talk about image view. Just don't worry about it. Right now, just assume that this is just a view that we put image inside of it. It's a kind of view, like table view, like other views, but this one just accepts images. And this UI image is the subclass, and you just UI image. And this is the method that we can add a name, pick a name from our files. And if I run the program, it should add image at the left side of our names. Now we have our names and nice pictures in front of each other. We didn't create a array for these images because we didn't have an image for each and every name. We can add array for an image once we have all of the images, because we don't have image for every name. I didn't add an array. I just used one image for all of the cells. So this is all about the UI table view, simple UI table. This is the simplest UI table view that we could create. But there's some more interesting things here. If you click on a table view here and go into the attribute inspector, let's see what we have here. See, the content right now, it's dynamic. We can change it to static cell and see what would happen here. See, it adds automatically 3 static cell. We can add whatever we want. This is the section number. We can add it, for example, 2 sections, and it adds 2 sections here. See? This is just for static. It doesn't, the static table view doesn't need these 2 methods, which was number of sections in table and number of rows in section, because we do it hard-coded, and these tables are just like very hard-coded. So, and as an example, I can show you, for example, what could be the settings. If we can see, for example, general, see, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are static. And how many sections? This is one section, this is another section, and this is the last section. So that's why we use static. But for some dynamic, this is dynamic because it's based on the number of application. This section is dynamic because based on your application it has some different settings. So based on our application, we didn't have any static table, but we had some dynamic. In static table, you can go ahead and try to change the titles as you want here because they're static and there's no need to add code. For example, we say stack, and the detail would be stack.blogspot.com. The reason that I didn't mention so much on static tables is because it is so simple. You just have to do it from the storyboard. And if I click again on the table view, which is here underneath the cells, and then go back to the attribute inspector, we can change this style, and this time we change the plain style. We can do the group style, and it will show you the group style. We can have this feature for the dynamic as well, and it will group the cells, and the example could be the contact list. And if I, by the way, for the simulator, the home button is Command-Shift-H, and if I go to the contact list, we don't have any contact list here, but it has a different sections, and it's exactly like this. The maybe the letter and the number, the names underneath that letter, and the next letter and the name underneath that letter. So you can just play with these attribute inspector. They're easy to understand. You can, for example, we have some bounds here. When you go to the, let me open the application. For example, this one. When you see, we have some bounds. It's the end of the table, but it bounces and it shows. But you can disable this bounce by coming here and say bounce vertically, bounce horizontally. You can play with these inspector, but basically this is all about UITableView, simple UITableView controller. Just one more thing that I have to talk is table view. We drag and drop the table view. Don't mess it up with the and this table view. This is just a view. This is just a view, and we will talk about it. This is it's similar, but it's not a controller. It's just a view. And this one is just a controller. So this is table view controller, and this is what we want for our application. So let's put your comments and your problems, if any, underneath of this video, or visit us at hookstack.blogspot.com. Thank you. Until next time.